Chapter 2. The Mission Begins. The Grand Hall was busy as usual. Everyone was eating the extravagant meal that was presented to them every time. Don seemed to be enjoying every single thing on the table that was edible. Elizabeth and Thomas waited somewhat patiently as he stuffed his face. Right before biting into a mini piece of corn, Don looked up to see the two other students looking at him, annoyed. "What? A growing boy's gotta eat!" As she did with the candy bar, Elizabeth slapped the piece of corn out of his hand. Don slowly turned his head in disgust.
"Now, Thomas, what is that thing in your pocket?"
Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope that Harry had given him. He slowly started to pull open the seal, and the card leapt out of his hand into the air.
"Oh, bloody hell! It's a howler!"
Don said, cowering, putting his head down with his hands on top. The letter opened and began to talk, but not loudly.
"Perhaps we should do this in a more private location," the letter said, in the voice of Potter himself. "We could go to the common room. Everyone is in here eating. We would be the only ones there."
Thomas grabbed the letter, and the three got up from the giant table and walked out the door. They made their way to the infamous changing stairways of the castle. Holding as each set would turn in a different direction, the students finally made it to a point where two stairways split off, one to the right and one to the left. Don and Elizabeth proceeded up the left stairway, and Thomas went up the right one.
"Where are you going?" Elizabeth asked.
"Hufflepuff common room. Where are you going?" "Gryffindor common room," Don replied. Elizabeth then slapped her hand onto her face.
"Well, great. You know what this means, right? Ever since the Great Attack, students are not supposed to be in the other house's common rooms, for fear of suspicious activity."
"Leave that to me. However, until we meet again, please accept these as a friendly token of my appreciation," Thomas said, smiling. He handed them 2 cards, one for each of them. He then ran off, up his stairway. Don and Elizabeth appeared confused, and continued up their stairs. Nightfall covered the exterior of the castle, and it began to snow. Everyone was in their common rooms by now. Don sat on the giant red couch in the Gryffindor common room. Elizabeth soon came down the stairs and plopped onto the couch with Don.
"Where have you been?" Don asked. "Despite what you think, I do like to find out what I'm getting involved in. You should get involved in many things. Anyway, I went to the library and checked out a bunch of books that followed the instructions to find his book, only to learn that it hasn't reached the Hogwarts library yet. You'd think honor students like me and him would have such access to things. So, I have been wasting my time looking at these old dusty things, trying to find the right one."
"Whose book?"
"Thomas's. That's what those cards he gave us were. Instructions on how to find it, but—"
A small tapping came from the window. It was an owl. Don opened the doors to let the owl in. He stepped aside to let the animal in, but it wouldn't move.
"Stupid bird."
Elizabeth rolled her eyes and got up from the giant couch and went over to the window.
"Move over. Why don't you let someone who has actually paid attention in animals of the magic kind take care of this?"
She went over to a bookshelf, where a leather glove lay, and she put it on. Slowly and softly, she approached the bird, and it carefully jumped onto the glove. She carefully put her other hand under the beak of the owl, and out of the beak came an envelope. She then returned to the window and let the owl fly away. Elizabeth opened the letter and read it aloud.
"Come to the 7th floor, left corridor, across from the Barnabas the Banty tapestry. 9 o'clock sharp. Don't be late."
"Now what?" Don said in a worried yet confused tone.
"We're not allowed to be in the other house's common rooms. However, there's no rules saying that we can't leave our houses whenever we want to."
"There's a reason for that. They think that we would have enough sense not to wander around a dark, creepy castle at night, or frankly any time of the day." Elizabeth rolled her eyes again, but accompanied it with a small chuckle. Elizabeth then looked at her grandfather clock that clanged 8:45. She grabbed Don by the robe and then snuck out of the common room and made their way to the Hufflepuff Tower. The 2 Gryffindors soon reached the Hufflepuff Tower and made their way up to the entrance of the common room. A painting of a knight turned toward them and spoke to them. "Well, well, what do we have here?" "Gryffindors. The ones that always seem to win everything thanks to pure, dumb luck. Wouldn't the more logical reason be magic? Don asked the painting. Not when Harry Potter is in your house. Both apply. Don and Elizabeth agreed by nodding their heads. So let's get this over with. Password. Elizabeth pulled out the letter from her robe pocket. She raised it up to the knight. The knight lifted his visor and looked at what the letter read. Oh, well, come right in. One thing, though, if you tell the teachers about this, I shall cut out your livers. The knight raised his sword at them. The students slowly backed off from the painting and continued into the Hufflepuff common room. The common room had no signs of life in it. Not a very exciting place, Dawn commented. That's because everyone's asleep, Elizabeth silently shouted at Dawn. Thomas saw the two students downstairs and came down right away. Good, I'm glad you guys are here. Sorry for this being so late, but the letter told me to have the meeting this late. How did you get the door to let us in? I made up a spell so that it would identify my handwriting. The two Gryffindors both opened their eyes wide at Thomas. You what? Who goes there, blubbering bloody? A voice from above said, and was soon silenced by a big flop. Keep quiet. I don't want you to wake our head boy. Wants to be as good as Weasley was. I'll explain more about the door later. He pulled out the letter. It levitated from Thomas's hand into the air between all three students. The voice of Harry Potter started to come out of the envelope. I expected to be in Gryffindor, but at least we're alone. Now, the thing I wanted to tell you guys is... Don raised a finger. Wait, can I interrupt here for a second? A howler is only supposed to read what was written in it. However, it sounds like we're having a conversation. Well said, Don, but please hold all other questions and interruptions until the end. Now, I've informed Thomas already in person, but because you seem to be fairly close, I think you can tag along. This wouldn't work if it wasn't a trio of two boys and a girl anyway. Also, if you have been taking the Life of Harry Potter 101, then you should know what I'm going to ask you. If you remember, while I and friends were defeating Lord Voldemort, and yes, I said that name, not to worry. That and all other words were banned have now become mainstream, Elizabeth commented. Thank you, Elizabeth. Anyway, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, and I hunted down parts of Voldemort's soul called Horcruxes. Now, this is going to sound a little weird, but I have something similar. I am disappearing from existence. Not dying, yet anyway, but slightly vanishing. I can't be quite sure if it's out of usefulness, popularity, etc. I need you to collect parts of my past and bring them all together in the Gryffindor common room. Once everything is together, I will be able to come into existence. The first place you need to go is a place when I first was at Hogwarts. You can use this howler to contact me, but don't use it too many times. Don then had a realization. That's why you're communicating with us through a howler, and that's what was different about you when you came to Professor McGonagall's classroom. Your scar was gone. Now, all of you grab onto the envelope and hang on tight. I must go to Hermione and Ron's place. They have something they say will help. The letter floated down to the floor, and skeptically, they all grabbed the envelope. I hope we're back in time, Elizabeth wondered. Instantly, their bodies vanished from the Hufflepuff common room, and they were on their way to who knows what.